Hello, good evening. It's 22 hours GMT here in Accra, and this is News at 10. I am Stephen NT. We begin the bulletin with a look at some of the day's news highlights. Some frustrated senior high school applicants and their parents besieged the Education Ministry to demand SHL Placement. A 48-hour directive to qualified applicants by the ministry has sent prospective students and their parents scrambling to beat the deadline. Two teacher unions have given the Controller and Accountant General 1 week to issue guidelines for those whose salaries have been suspended to be validated. The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and the Teachers and Education Workers Union, TEWU, have warned that any delay could trigger unrest. And the Executive Director of West African Network for Peace Building, Chukwuemeka Eze, is proposing the use of local and traditional institutions to address the long-standing Nkonya-Alavanyo conflict. According to him, local institutions have closer ties with the people and can best speak to their conscience. Right, those are major news highlights. Remember, you can hear us on 3FM 92.7 and we're streaming live on our Facebook page. Up next is the big one. And some frustrated senior high school applicants and their parents besieged the Education Ministry to demand SHL Placement. A 48-hour directive to qualified applicants by the ministry has sent prospective students and their parents scrambling to beat the deadline.
The Education Ministry premises frustrated parents and prospective SHL students in a mad rush to beat the deadline. They recounted the difficulties registering online to be placed. Others cannot even access their results.
I passed all right, but I didn't get the placement. When I get to I used the MTN to check it. They said all my 4 choices, I have lost it. And I said, okay. So I tried using the website. It will come. You try to select your suit, but it will just go off. It won't come again. So today we came to the office here, education office, and they said they directed us to go to NIT, IT, to go and check it over there. When we get there too, they said the website is down.
When we start checking the result, it's still blocked. So that's the reason why we came back to the Ghana Education Service.
So your daughter has not seen her result?
No. Even right now, when we came, they asked us to go so that we should go back and check it on Friday. That's what they say. So we are totally frustrated and we don't know what to do.
The ministry convened an emergency news briefing to apologize to parents for the difficulties encountered, blaming internet connectivity. Initially, the ministry gave students 48 hours to register or risk forfeiting their placement, but has now rescinded its directive. Dr. Yaodichum is the Deputy Minister of Education.
At the end of the 2 days, if your child is not enrolled, we're not going to cut him or cut her off. We had about 92% of the students declared as placed in regards to the fact that they are seized for them. Now, the 8% are those who did not do on the exams. They are students who have a number of fails.
Well, let's do some discussions on this. We have the president of the National Council Parent Teachers Association, Alexander Yao Danso, joining us on the telephone lines. Now, later we'll be getting on to Skype to speak with Mr. Peter Party NT, who is the acting executive director of the Education an NGO education institute. Let's do the telephone conversation with Mr. Yaudan. So good evening, sir. Thank you. We're grateful that you could join us. I know the back and forth with the computer selection and placement may have been frustrating parents and students alike. I want to hear what your views or comments are on the back and forth so far.
Thank you, my brother. Good evening to your listeners. Yes, I heard the students and I also heard the deputy minister. Honestly, if my memory serves me right, this is not the first time that parents are going through such challenges. You know, ever since the commencement of the computerized placement system, this is all what we have been going. But it's just that, you know, this year, the students are many. Each and every person, whoever passed, is supposed to enter the senior high school free of charge. You understand? And
yes,
so there are a lot of people, you know, those who even didn't pass. I had a parent this morning, was it this afternoon? Yes, saying his ward got 37. I was a little bit embarrassed because if my child gets about 37, I was going to rewrite, you know. And so all these students are, you know, accessing the internet to get schools. Of course, like I said, this is on the first time. But Ghanaians like the last minute things. You know, you give them 1 minute, you give them 2 days, and they won't even go. The last minute, some few hours to the time, you see them, you know, running helter-skelter to access the internet. So I know the challenges we are facing now. God willing, I'm quite certain that next week by this time, God willing, and we're all alive, would experience what we are going through this year.
So what I need to understand from you is that you just mentioned that this level of frustration and stress is very common with the computerized placement system, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, really. I mean, considering the fact
that is it. But you know, this year is different. You know, I would say it's a different, extraordinary, you know, placement. What I mean is that, you know, during the commencement of the placement system, it happened. Even last year, parents were going through our attitude of, I don't like this school, I like this school. You see, it is high time parents, you know, get down to advise their children, that it is not the school that is going to learn for you, it is the individual.
But Mr. I beg your pardon. I mean, I know there are some schools which have, you know, better equipment, the better systems in the schools, and there is also the protocol system, really. So some parents are using protocols to place their children in better placed schools. I mean, A-grade schools against some others.
Why don't you allow your child to write and study and write well than to rely on protocol? And I think we have to cancel the protocol allocation, because that is even, you know, that has the protocol allocation, as far as I'm concerned, gives room to the elites, you know, leaving the weaker ones behind. And so it's high time we of course, we cannot erode it completely because everywhere it's there. But we need, if indeed we want each and every child to enroll, you know, we must actually tell them, advise them to study hard rather than to be relying on, you know, protocol allocations and all that.
Right, Mr. Danso, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Mr. Alexander Yaudanso is the president of the National Council of Teachers. Let's go on to Skype now and speak with Mr. Peter Pate Enti, who is the acting executive director, country director of the Institute for Education Studies. Ms. Enti, nice to have you. I know that you must have been keenly watching what is going on with the computer placement and all of that. As at the end of Friday, there were over 150,000 pupils who couldn't get placements, and they have to go through all the stress that Mr. Yaudanso talks about in order to get a place for their children. There are even those who passed, and yet none of their 4 schools were not placed in any of the 4. How do we overcome these teething challenges which are becoming the norm with the computer placements? Right. I think we have lost sound from Mr. NT. We're trying to see whether we can get this better sound. Mr. NT, if you can hear me, perhaps you can speak directly without your headset, and let's see whether that can improve. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Right. I'm afraid that we're having technical challenges with Peter Party NT, and let's see whether he's back on. Mr. NT, can you hear me? Right, we'll take a break here. I'm Stephen NT. This is News at 10. Remember, you can hear us on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on our Facebook page as well as on 3news.com. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, the U.S. envoy to the United Nations has urged the Security Council to take, quote, the strongest possible measures against North Korea after its latest nuclear test. The U.S. will circulate a draft resolution for a vote next Monday. Reports suggest the North is preparing new test missile launches. It tested a nuclear bomb underground on Sunday. Estimates of its power range from 50 kilometers to 120 kilometers. A 50 kiloton device will be about 3 times the size of the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima in 1946. Right, let's stay on this issue of tensions on the North Korea Peninsula. I have on the telephone lines Professor Vladimir Intridanso, International Relations Expert and Dean of the Ghana Armed Forces Staff and Command College. Good evening, Prof. We're grateful you could join us. So the Korean Peninsula is thousands of miles away from Ghana, though we know. So some will say, why should we be worried when what goes on there? Should we here in Ghana and Africa be concerned at all?
Well, the world is a small village now, and we cannot say that what is happening in North Korea, if indeed there is an attack on the U.S. soil and the U.S. also retaliates, it wouldn't affect us. It would affect us in several ways. Economically, trade will be disrupted. The whole world will go into some kind of frenzy. Besides economics, the weather will be affected, climate, and the effect will be felt very far off. And Ghana will be part of the world that will just feel the pain of having a hydrogen bomb, which was tested last Saturday, or an atomic bomb fixed on ICBMs to hit the U.S. So we can't say that we are far off, and so we cannot be concerned. We should be concerned about what is happening. We should be concerned.
Now, I also know it's a fact that various UN sanctions have failed to more like halt the rapid advances of Pyongyang's nuclear program. So China is also said to be holding the key, but there are fears also. Is Beijing, do you get the feeling that Beijing is protecting her national interests by not putting that much pressure on her neighbor?
No, the point is that we must understand this nuclear politics, the international politics, the possession of the nuclear bomb or the nuclear facilities and whatnot. It is a source of strength and a bargaining power, a bargaining chip in all kinds of discussions. And you have it, why can't I have it? So there is a big politics of it. And again, people benefit from being friends to such persons. And so one way or the other, China will not feel there's so much pressure, pressurizing North Korea not to do it or to do it, because in the event that they can put their resources together in terms of nuclear capability, they stand together against the U.S. for that matter. So for a long time, China didn't feel the need to put any pressure for North Korea not to have it. And American foreign policy had not also allowed some kind of dialogue and the Russians couldn't be prepared. But now it looks as though it's so clear that anytime there are exercises in the Korean waters, especially on behalf of South Korea, the North Koreans are not happy. There are 240,000 personnel, U.S. personnel, on South Korean soil. And, the 1950 war didn't end. They are still in war because it was armicide and not any kind of treaty that was signed. So it's a dicey situation when we are trying to analyze North Korea. The idea must be seen in terms of international politics and not necessarily some erratic kind of leader who just wants to jolt the world. No, there is a purpose for what he's doing.
I'm curious, really, the purpose for what he is doing, you say. But will you say that maybe, perhaps, if the rest of the world formally accepts North Korea as a nuclear power, it will solve the problem? Or you'd say perhaps it will create a wider race in the nuclear arms in the region?
One way or the other. So one American general had said this, and I've forgotten the name. He had said it. He said, look, if we really want to solve the nuclear menace, then we need to change our foreign policy. We need towards nuclear within parties. For example, not all countries have signed onto the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. And if that is the case, then why did you allow other countries who are within and without to have it, like Pakistan and India? They tested 7 times, and the world didn't seem to have been bothered. Well, that's number one. Why is Israel having it? And a whole lot of things. There is a whole political game where the nuclear situation is concerned. And to solve that problem, it has been a peaceful kind of pacifying North Korea all along. And they have been warning that let these exercises stop so that we can join our countries together. Nobody has taken that seriously. And every time we are threatening them and always saying that he's a bad boy. And so it's like this mad guy, let me call him, has come and said, okay, if we are mad, let me be mad. I'm a bad boy. Let's see what happens. And gradually he has been able to now produce capabilities that are capable of hitting Guam. And now we are alarmed. So I think the world is to blame one way or the other for all that we have done to them. Right, Professor. 60, 70 years of sanctions and blamings and intimidation, it was just too much. It's the same like Iran. But when we sat down with Iran, I thought there was some kind of understanding, even though tacitly Iran is still preparing. Right,
Professor Vladimir Nchidanso, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Professor Vladimir Nchidanso is an international relations expert. Let's stay in the Sahel region. Togolese opposition parties are gearing up for another protest this week. The 6-party opposition coalition, CAP 2015, and the Pan-African National Party, PNP, will hold the protest on September 6th and 7th. They are calling for the revision of the 1992 Constitution, which was modified in 2002, allowing Foro Nyasingbe to run for an unlimited term. They want the original 2 5-year term limit to be restored, a 2-ballot system, reform of the Constitutional Court and the Electoral Commission. President Foro Nyasingbe has been in power since his father, Nyasingbe Eyadema, died after spending 38 years in office. Right, let's go on to the telephone lines again. We have Silvio Kombe, a Togolese journalist, joining us. Mr. Kombe, how are you, sir? Thank you. We're grateful you're joining us.
Yeah, that's the pleasure. The pleasure is mine.
Great. Now, the previous protest, has the government said anything about the demands to return to the 1992 Constitution?
Not really. Not really. The opposition is asking for the callback or to maintain the 1992 Constitution, but the response of the government was another demonstration. Instead of giving a clear answer to the request of the opposition, the government, or I would say the ruling party, has also called on the demonstration that was last Tuesday rather, to also make people, reaffirm their support to to the institutions. They are saying that the peace is at risk in Togo. So people were also on the street to support the government or to support the ruling party. But there is no concrete answer to the request of the opposition. But may I call on that, you know, upon the request of the opposition, that there was a commission that was set up by the government. That commission has not finished its work, and according to what we are hearing, that the commission is about to give out the work that they have done, and then there's going to be kind of discussion at the parliament. But we are still hoping, because for 2 times, once the opposition has sent a kind of a proposal to the parliament for them to approve all their requests, but it didn't pass on. And the second time, the government also sent a kind of a proposition or kind of proposal to the parliament, but it has also been rejected. But so now there's no concrete answer.
So, Mr. Kombe, tell me, how are preparations for this week's protest?
Yeah, you know, this morning the opposition had a press conference saying that they are going on the streets. That will be Wednesday and Thursday. But after the press conference, they went to the prison to visit some people who had been jailed. You know, there are about 60 who have been jailed. Some of them are in Lomé, and others in the northern part of the country. Right. So the opposition leaders went to the prison to pay a visit to them, and it's kind of saying that we didn't leave you aside. So, so far we are still hoping, we are still hearing, and we are still waiting to see what will happen on
right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Silvio Kombe, the Togolese journalist. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, here in Ghana, freight forwarders were obliged to access the online paperless transaction on the 4th day of its implementation. While many had very little knowledge of the process, others would not even commence the transaction.
Before September 1 this year, the long room used to host hundreds of freight forwarders and clearing agents who either have to submit or receive their classification and valuation documents. The situation is changing following the implementation of the paperless transaction. 2 customs officers were attending to these freight forwarders who had trooped to the long room to get their documents manually worked on as part of the backlog. Fred, a freight forwarder, had accessed the online platform.
When we send the declaration online, or the normal process, when the declaration comes, they approve it. You have custom officer's name on the declaration, so you know which custom officer you have to present a document to. But for now, I sent my declaration today. I didn't see any custom officer's name on the document, so I was confused. That's why I came here. When I came to, I didn't see any custom officer. So I was confused, and I'm still confused.
But AC Banini is yet to do so.
As I'm speaking to you, my office, the system, nothing is going through, and I'm supposed to pay duty today too. But nothing is going through.
By midday, anxiety set in, and many were frustrated as they complained bitterly about the emerging challenges.
The new system is good. We understand it. But you know, we have old documents lying down, so the old system should go with the new system hand in hand.
They would not pay any cost incurred as a result of the delays. The revenue center was also packed. Kwabna Ofosu Apia is the president of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders.
Customs will have to have an effective transition management tool in place. Well, it's very, very necessary that we see that kind of presence. You know, if you're going to have only 2 folks left to cater for the backlogs, I say that is not quite enough.
Port authorities confirmed the challenges which are being addressed.
And that's how we end News at 10. I'm Stephen NT. Thank you very much for staying with us. On behalf of the crew, good night and enjoy the rest of our programs.